Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So what I'm gonna do is, on my way home from work, I got like a 20-minute drive. I'm going to tell you guys about what happened yesterday, Ezri's surgery. You guys know he needed surgery and he got it done. Finally, we had to keep rescheduling it and we finally got it done. So what he ended up getting, here's the story. I'll tell you what he ended up getting first, and I'll tell you like how it went. He ended up getting, he had to get a circumcision redone. He had it done when he was first born, but they kind of messed up a little bit. So he had that redone, and then because his balls, I don't want to say they didn't drop. I mean, they would come down, but then they would go back up, and they would come down, and they would go back up. Like every time he went to an appointment, they were either there or they weren't. And so when we took him to the other doctors, she said that he needed a stitch put in on both sides to keep them down from going back up. So he had that done. And then she said that he had something called a webbed penis, which I had no idea, never even heard of it until he got out of surgery, and she was telling me, you know, how everything went. And she's like, we discovered he has a webbed penis, and we went in and we snipped and fixed that. And I'm like, okay. So I actually Googled it later on when I got home to see what the heck she was talking about, and I was like, oh yeah. You know, I thought maybe it was just part of the circumcision that they didn't do properly, but apparently it's called a webbed penis, and they fixed that. So baby boy has stitches all over down there. He's got them in his balls. He's got them from like the top to like the bottom, like the under, what's it called, shaft, under part of his pee-pee, and then he's got it around the top. So he's all stitched up down there. It looks pretty bad down there, but I'm assuming it's because it's like swollen and stuff, and it's red and it's bleeding, but he's doing really good, really good. So anyway, we go there. His dad is with me, and you know, we check in. His dad goes and sits and waits in the room at the chairs. Me and Ezri goes up to the desk and we're checking in, and she's asking me all these questions. I'm signing all these papers. And then we go sit down. They give us this little beeper, and we're just sitting in the waiting room. Dad's holding Ezri. Beeper goes off. She calls us back there. She says only one, you know, parent can go back there, you know, before the surgery, and then after the surgery, both parents can go back there in the recovery room. So of course Mama went, you know. So we go into the room, and they are weighing him. They're checking his heart, you know what I mean? They are had to take his clothes off and put a gown on him. They put the, what's that thing, the band that goes around your feet on him, and he was supposed to do it during checkup, but he wouldn't let them do it. So what she did was, she said, I'll just have the nurse do it. I said, okay. So they put it on his feet, right? And Ezri has his leg like up in the air like it's broke. And she's like, you know, taping it or whatever they do, they put, you know, to make it stick. And he's like, ow, 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 ow. I'm like, Ezri, Mr. Drama King, he's ow-owing with his leg like all the way up in the air, and all she's doing is putting this hospital band around his ankle. And I was like, oh boy. And it was really cute. I was laughing, she was laughing. She was like, oh my goodness. He was really bothered by this band around his ankle. He did not like it. He didn't like the way it felt. And so I ended up giving him some hand sanitizer to kind of get his mind off of it, and he's rubbing his hands and stuff, and it kind of took his mind off of the band. And he's got his little nightgown on. She tried to put some socks on him to, you know, get his mind off of the band being on his leg, and of course he wasn't having it. He didn't want none of those hospital socks on him, and his feet were so small they went up to like his ankle. We got one sock on him, and he started like freaking out and saying no. So we took the sock off, but it was so long it went up to like his knee. It was really cute. I was like, oh, he looks so cute in his little hospital gown, his little giant socks. And so we're just in there. The guy from anesthesia comes in and he tells me, you know, that he's done it a whole bunch of times, and risk, and like all the stuff that he was, you know, they give you that, you know, they got to give you the info. And he's saying that when they take him back, he'll be the one that will be holding him, and, you know, just talking to me and let me know what was going on. And then the doctor comes in and she's like, who do we have today? Can you tell us what we're doing today? You know, birthday, blah, 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 blah. And so we go over all that. And she's like assuring me that they, you know, they've done this a lot and all that. And then, I don't know if he's the surgeon, another doctor came in, and it was weird. It was the doctor who checked his pee-pee, you know, at a different, like, doctor's office. And then I guess the actual surgeon came in. It was a guy. And he was telling me, you know, he's done over 14,000 of these procedures, and he's going to be okay. And he was telling me about risk of, like, infection and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay. And then they told me that they will give him pain medication that will last, I think he said 5 to 6 hours after the surgery, and it's kind of like an epidural where it will go in his back like an epidural and kind of numb him from like the belly button to I think the top of the thigh or something like that. I don't quite remember, but he said it was, you know, it's better. He said it'd be easier to get him comfortable in the car seat after the surgery, and you know, it'll last a few hours once we get home, blah, 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 blah. And so I had to sign the consent for that. He said that there was no risk of like damage to the spine with that, and because I was kind of worried about that, because y'all know my back was messed up from getting that stuff in it when I had my kids. So I was just kind of worried about all that. Or then after that, they all just kind of left the room. There was a lot of people in and out of there giving me a bunch of information. And then they all come back in at the same time. And they're like, okay, we're ready to go. And I'm like, So I hand Ezri over to him. And I feel like Ezri's going to be freaking out. And he's not. He went right to the anesthesia guy. And they wrapped him up in a little blankie. And he was holding him like this. And his head was on his shoulders, and as they walk out of the room and walking down the hallway, I'm like waving bye to him, and he's just looking at me, and I thought for sure he was going to be crying and reaching for me and all that, but he wasn't. He was fine. He left with them. I think he just felt snug and like secure because he was in a big warm blankie, and somebody was like bear hugging him, and I don't know, but he did better than what I thought he was going to. So then they take me out to the waiting room where Dad is. And we're waiting and we're waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. I think I gotta go this way. And the whole time, like, I've tried, like, sparking conversations with Sean and, like, telling him, like, you know, what Ezri was doing in the back room and all that. And he was just kind of like, like, didn't want to be bothered, so I just kind of left him alone, even though I was nervous as fuck and just wanted to talk and just wanted to, you know, just talk like normal people in waiting rooms do. But I felt like I was alone. I was like on Facebook. I was just like trying to keep my mind busy, and a couple of people were messaging me because I had made a fake Facebook post, and I was like, this is some bullshit. I feel like I'm here alone. But I got up and I went over to the vending machine and got a coffee and like a bag of chips. And so I decided to just sit in that room since he wasn't really talking to me anyway. So I sat, you know, on the other side and was just drinking my coffee and stuff and waiting for them to tell me that he was done, and just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And I'm like, something is wrong, because they said this was a quick surgery and it's been a while. He still ain't done. And I was just like, I know something's wrong. I felt it in my bones that something was wrong. And I had said to Sean, because Sean, you know, said that, oh, you know, his other son had the same surgery. Well, kind of, because Ezri had more done than his other son. And he's like, he was up and playing the same day or next day or something like that. He was fine. I'm like, okay, but Ezra's never been under either, so we don't know if he's one of those people where they're going to react to anesthesia. He's like, oh yeah. Well, that's what happened. So they finally come out, and she spots me, and she's talking to me, and she's telling me how the procedure went well. They're all done. He looks great. And then she goes, he stopped breathing a couple of times. And I'm like, what? Yeah, he stopped breathing. She's like, we're having a hard time getting him, out of anesthesia. I'm like freaking out at this point. And she was telling me about, the procedure and what they did and how she found the webbed penis. I'm like, just give me all this information at once. And all I could think about is my son stopped breathing, And she's like, do you want to go back and see him? I'm like, heck city, yeah, I want to go see my baby, And then I'm like, oh shit, Sean's here. Like, I totally forgot he was freaking there, Like I said, he wasn't saying nothing to me, and we were in totally different rooms at this point. And I was like, oh, his dad's out there. She's like, oh, I didn't know dad was here. I was like, yeah. But I said, can you go out there and repeat the same information you just gave me? I was like, do you mind? And she's like, no, I don't mind. So she goes out there and repeats the same thing to him, and he's just kind of like, yeah, listening. And then we go back and we go see Ezri, and we walk into the room, and Ezri is like in this little like baby crib thing, and he's got all this stuff hooked up to him. He's got an oxygen mask on, and he's just like, oh my goodness, you guys, you should have seen him. I was crying because I'm like, just the thought of him stop breathing like really scared me. And hold on, yeah, I was really scared. And then this other doctor, the guy, I'm not sure who he was. I don't know if he was the surgeon or if he was just there. I don't know. There were so many people in the room. There was a couple of nurses in the room, and then a doctor that kept coming in because we were waiting for him to wake up, which they told me before the operation, because I asked them how long will he be out, and they told me about 10 minutes. He'll wake up within 10 to 15 minutes after they're done. No, Ezri was out for some time, and his little breath was like, his little chest was like he was breathing, and that kind of like made me, he just looked so helpless. And so seeing your like baby like that is just, it makes you cry. Like, it makes you cry. I don't know how Sean wasn't crying just seeing him like that and like breathing the way he was. And we were trying to wake the poor boy up, and he's like, I think I gotta get in the other lane. Trying to wake him up, and he wasn't awake, but he kept like trying to get to his nose and his eyes, and they said that that's normal. It's an involuntary movement when you're coming out of anesthesia. I guess it's just something that your body does. So I'm like, is he awake? And she's like, no, he's sleeping. It's just an involuntary movement that he's doing. I was like, okay. Because he kept, like, his mask kept coming off, and I kept putting it back on because I wanted him to keep the oxygen mask on because they said he stopped breathing, and I was worried about that. And they didn't leave the room, like, at all. They said they weren't going to leave us alone with him, which, I'm glad that they didn't do that, because I would have been freaking out if he would have stopped breathing and nobody was in the room. Like, they would have heard me throughout the whole hospital yelling for help. But he finally like started to come to, you guys, and he's like, making noises, and then one of his eye opens and like rolls in the back of his head, and then it closes, and I'm like, oh, my baby. And oh, my phone moved, I'm sorry. And then I'm rubbing on his cheek, because I always go like this at night, to help him fall asleep. I rub him like this. Whew. I had to stop fast. I can fix the camera now. And so I'm rubbing on his cheek and stuff, and like going like this and rubbing his hair, and you know, I'm rubbing his arm and stuff. He's got the little IV in his arm, so I was trying to be careful of that. And he's like waking up, and then I think he heard my voice as he was coming up, and he's like, "Mama," and then he was like out again, and I was like, oh, that was so sweet. Like, he recognized my voice. He knew that was Mama next to him, and like rubbing his face and his hair and stuff. And then she took the mask off him and started to like unhook him, because he kind of started to be a little bit more awake, and they let me hold him. And I think that's when he really like woke up is when, you know, I think he kind of felt that he was in my arms. He was sleeping for a little bit in my arms, and when they took the mask off, he seems to have been like a whole lot better. His breathing got a little bit more normal, like he wasn't breathing as hard and as heavy. They still had the thing on his finger, you know, just in case he stopped breathing, it would like alert them. Or what? No, it was on his toe, I think. I'm sorry, it was on his toe. And, you know, and he's starting to move around again. And when he finally like opened his eyes, like, I was holding him, and he was getting kind of heavy. So I picked him up and kind of like put him a little bit closer to me, because my arm was kind of hurting, because I was holding his head in my arms, you know. And when I picked him up, he kind of opened his eyes a little bit, and he saw Dad, and he's like, Dad, and he like waved at him, and it was so stinking cute. Like, he had those two moments when he recognized Mom's voice, and then he opened his eye. I swear he saw Dad first, because he opened his eye and said Dad and waved, and then kind of closed his eyes again and was like kind of out again, like out of it. And I'm like, he's waking up. He's definitely waking up. And I started to feel better, because he was for sure waking up. And so we're just like talking to him and stuff, and you know, he finally opens like really opens his eyes and looking around, and I'm like, yep, he's up. And that was just like the best like moment ever. Like, it was, I'm like, he's awake, he woke up. They were having a hard time getting him awake, you guys, and I was like crying. I was so freaking crying. When they let me hold him, that's when I felt a little bit better. But when he was laying in that bed and just all that stuff hooked up to him, and him breathing all hard, and the doctor was telling me how, you know, he couldn't predict that something like this would happen. He was telling us about how he stopped breathing, and I was just like, I was in tears. It would have been nice if like he would have like, you know, I don't know, put his arm around me or something, like, you know, like, I don't know. He's just not that type of person. But I felt so fucking alone, like, during this whole thing. Even though his dad was present, I still felt alone, which is just, it's just a normal feeling when it comes to, when it's being with him. But yeah, I was like, I'm so glad my baby boy is awake, you guys. I'm so glad he was awake. I just felt so much better. And so they gave him some juice. Well, I brought a bottle with me, and he drank that whole bottle. They said he would be thirsty, and he drank it. She said, be careful, I don't want him to choke on it, you know, and his tummy might be upset. And nope, he drank that whole bottle down. And then she gave him some goldfish. He was kind of just holding on to it, and kind of, you could tell he was loopy and like out of it. He was moving really slow, because normally he's like with goldfish, you know. But he was definitely moving a little slow, was a little like groggy. The nurse that was in there was like, he's kind of like a little drunk baby right now. I was like, okay, so that's why he's acting like that. You could tell he wanted to go back to sleep, but like he wanted to stay awake, you know. He was in a new environment, and we were there, and we were talking, and you could tell he was tired. He did fall asleep on the ride home, but yeah, he did good. He's here. I feel like it was a lot worse than what they told us, just by the way that he was talking, because he was like, the doctor was like, the good thing about all this is he's not going to remember any of this. He's going to grow up to be a fine young man, or whatever he was saying, just him growing up and not remember none of this. And just the way he was talking, it made it seem like we almost lost this one. You know what I mean? Like, just if they weren't, I don't know, just the way they were talking. I don't know if that's just normal for them to talk that way, but it just, I mean, he stopped breathing a couple of times. So I know that a few times they were probably worried, you know, that they were going to lose him. But I don't know. I'm just glad I wasn't in there when he was like quit breathing, because I had to freak the fuck out, which I think that's why it took them so long to come get us. I think his surgery had like been over, but they needed to, you know, get his breathing under control before they would let us in there. And I'm glad that they did, because I don't think that would have been too hard for me to see. But I knew something was wrong. I felt it. I knew it. When I was out in the waiting room, I knew it. That's why I had to get up and I had to go like into the other room and I had to go grab a coffee. Like, I just felt something was wrong. And this whole time I was so worried that he was gonna have a reaction to this anesthesia. It's like I knew this was gonna happen. It's so weird. Like, that happens to me a lot. It really does. Like, I just knew something was up. Something. But he made it. He's good now. I'm about to go pick him up right now. I'm almost to his dad's house. I'm gonna go get Layla and take him home. I have the day off tomorrow, so yeah. I just wanted to come on and share you guys his little story of what happened at the hospital, and we had a little scare, but he's good now, and I'm so glad. I really am. Now the crazy thing is, I'm gonna be remembering all this stuff that I should have added into this video later. You know how that is. You forget, you know, to say stuff, and then later on you're like, oh crap, I should have mentioned that about what happened, and you just forget. But that was pretty much it. I'm sure there's a lot I didn't mention, but that's like the gist of it. He was so, when I heard that mama, and his little eye opened, I was like, oh, he knows I'm here. He knows I'm next to him. He knows I'm the one rubbing his face. Like, he knows it's mama. Like, even out of it, he recognized mama was there. Alright, I am going to text his dad and tell him I'm outside, and I may end up vlogging today. Maybe, I don't know. It is Friday, or maybe I'll vlog tomorrow. I don't know. Anyways, thanks for watching, you guys. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.